Welcome to Revealing the Wolf. I'm Dustin Taylor. In this video, you're going to learn a great deal about one of the most popular prophecies in all the Bible. You will see that our world's past, present, and future have been foretold for us to prepare for. We are living in the latter days, just before the second coming of Christ. Strap in and prepare your hearts to receive a blessing. In part 1, we left off where Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar that his dream was for the latter days. He is now about to reveal to the king what it was. We read, "You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found, and the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth." Wouldn't you have liked to have been there to see Nebuchadnezzar's reaction? As Daniel is making known this dream, it's all coming back to him. He would have been at the end of his seat. God certainly has his undivided attention. The most important question for him now would be, what does it mean? Before we get into the interpretation, I think it's best to ask you a couple of questions. Have you ever heard people say that anyone can interpret prophecy any way they want? That it's all in the eyes of the beholder? I hear this often. But have you ever considered that since God gave the dream to Nebuchadnezzar, that it would make sense for him to also provide the interpretation? Daniel's understanding and knowledge about this dream was from the same source, whom he gave credit to. So instead of speculating what the dream means, let's hear what Daniel was told by God. He starts by saying, "You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold." Daniel said that God gave Nebuchadnezzar Babylon, and he was this head of gold. This means that Babylon is represented by the head. We know it's talking about kingdoms and not kings because verse 39 says so. Therefore, we conclude that the remainder of the descending metals also represent kingdoms. Chapter 2 does not name the rest of them, but Medo-Persia and Greece are listed in Daniel chapter 8. We'll get there later. Daniel continues saying, "You, O king, are a king of kings, but after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth." So we have Babylon as the head of gold, Medo-Persia as the chest and arms of silver, and Greece is represented by the belly and thighs of bronze. Then a fourth kingdom of iron in the legs and feet. We read, "And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all others." Did you know that history confirms that it was Rome that dominated the world after Greece? It was called the Iron Monarchy of Rome by historians. What a fitting name and description for this kingdom. Let's take time to review the historical accuracy of this prophecy. As we go down the line, I want you to notice the descending value of metals, but also see their increasing strength. Babylon's reign was from 605 to 539 BC. None would ever be as rich, extravagant, or magnificent as Babylon, the head of gold. You'll need to read the history of this mighty empire. They were completely self-sufficient. The Euphrates ran right through it. Historians say that they had 20 years of food reserves within its walls. There was no military weapons of its day that could impregnate its walls. They were estimated to be well over 100 foot high and wide enough that 2 chariots could race on them. These enclosed the entire city. When attacked, they would literally throw food down to the starving soldiers engaging them. It would seem impossible to defeat this glorious kingdom. If they had read their Bibles like Daniel or believed this interpretation, they might have known what was coming. Not only was the king that would conquer them named, but the exact strategy of the fall was told over 100 years beforehand. We read, "Thus says the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have held, to subdue nations before him, and loose the armor of kings, to open before him the double doors, so that the gates will not be shut. I will go before you. I will break in pieces the gates of bronze. I will dry up your rivers. Who says of Cyrus, he is my shepherd, and he shall perform all my pleasure? People can guess that kingdoms will rise and fall as they always have. They can speculate how their demise will be. But the Bible makes the future clear for us without guesswork. We can bet all we own on them and be paid back 100-fold for eternity. So how did Babylon fall? Medo-Persia was a joint force. Cyrus was ruler of the Persians and Darius was for the Medes. Cyrus diverted the Euphrates that ran through Babylon and dried it up. He knew that a drunken festival was taking place, and God was impressing his mind on what to do. When the river was dry, they marched under the gates, but there were inner walls and gates if something like this were to happen. It was so that these gates were left wide open as predicted. Had they been closed, their attack would have been in vain. But the guards did not have them shut. While the city was passed out from its drunken festival, they were raided, their king slain, and they woke up slaves to a new ruling empire. This empire stood from 539 to 331 BC. Next, we have the belly and thighs of bronze, which represents Greece. This kingdom lasted from 331 to 168 BC. History tells us that this great and mighty nation was led by Alexander the Great. He is considered a war genius and strategist. He was known to be ruthless, bloodthirsty, and a binge drinker. Combat and subduing nations were in his blood. By the time this man was 33 years old, Greece had swiftly dominated the known world. One historian stated that Alexander cried because there were no more worlds to conquer. He started a project to rebuild the temple in Babylon with 10,000 laborers, but he died, and it was never completed. Historians debate whether his death was from alcohol, malaria, or other causes. The most popular being death by alcohol poisoning because of his insatiable love to drink. Alexander the Great passed away at 33 years old just as Jesus did. Both died victoriously. One's victory gave worldly honor and riches that he couldn't take with him. The other's victory grants eternity to those who will follow him. Jesus died nailed on a wooden cross for you and me that we may be united and experience eternity with him after this life. We are the precious pearls that he came to purchase with his life. Which fulfillment do you want? The victory of the world or triumph over the world? Next, we have Rome's Iron Empire coming on the scene, represented by the legs of iron. When Rome defeated Greece at the Battle of Pydna, we had reached the iron portion of the image in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Rome was unlike anything before. Its republic, roads, generals, and military might was unparalleled. They crushed any opposing power and ruled with an iron fist. But prophecy continues, saying, "And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it. Just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay, and as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay." Did you notice that there was not to be a fifth dominating world empire? Rome was never conquered. Instead, Rome was divided into 10 kingdoms represented by the 10 toes. This all started taking place from AD 351 to 476. You can study about the barbaric tribes that made up the independent nations of Europe. Some of these were strong like iron and others brittle and weak like clay. Throughout the ages, men have tried to marry royalty together to bring Europe back together under one rule, but have failed. Others, like Napoleon and Hitler, tried to unite Europe through military conquest, but also failed. When God says they will not adhere to one another, you can count on it. Now let's read the pinnacle of this prophecy. It says, "And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. The great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure." Without question, we know that this kingdom coming that crushes all others and lasts forever is Jesus's. That kingdom brings the entire image to the ground and erases everything that they've ever stood for. This world doesn't end in a nuclear holocaust or natural disaster like many believe. We are living in the very toenails of Earth's history. The Rock of Ages is on its way. Let the words of a prophecy that has been accurate for 2,500 years be like trumpets in your ears. This dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. The pain, suffering, and corruption of this world will soon cease. Are you ready to enter God's everlasting kingdom? In chapter 1, I showed you a parallel between Jesus' first temptation in the wilderness with food as Daniel was with Babylon's buffet. Jesus' next temptation in the wilderness was to cast himself down from the temple. Satan quoted a specific scripture when trying to get Jesus to tempt God. We'll read from the basic Bible English version for simplicity. It says, "For he will give you into the care of his angels to keep you wherever you go. In their hands they will keep you up, so that your foot may not be crushed against a stone." Do you see the magnificent parallels? If Jesus had given in to what the enemy had said, that rock that crushes all Satan's worldly kingdoms would not be coming nor available to us. Praise his name that he overcame that temptation. After Daniel finishes telling the king the interpretation, Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face before Daniel and proclaimed, "Truly your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of secrets." The words of God made a profound impact on a prideful, sinful man. He accepted them as they were. Now, it didn't last long, as you'll see in the next video, but it is my prayer that these words have made a lasting impression on you. If you've enjoyed the video, I hope that you'll consider supporting the channel by sharing the content and subscribing. Until next time, stay faithful out there.